You've probably felt it your whole life, even if you never had words for it. One part of you feels heavy, looping, caught in the same stories no matter how hard you try to change. It's the voice that tells you, nothing will ever truly be different. You've tried before. You'll end up back here again. It feels like gravity inside your own mind. And then, there is something else, a strange light that refuses to die, a quiet, irrational certainty that you are from somewhere else, that this world is not the full story, that there is a home you remember without remembering. It rises in flashes, while you're staring at the sky, listening to a melody that sounds like the past and the future at once, or sitting alone in a silence that suddenly feels like someone is listening back. Most people call this conflict mental health, trauma, conditioning. And yes, those layers are real. But beneath even those layers, there is a deeper war happening inside you, a war between two vast architectures of reality. One is an artificial sphere built to recycle consciousness. The other is a forbidden realm of living light that refuses to bow to any god of control. Your thoughts are not just thoughts, they are signals from different worlds. Tonight, I want you to imagine that every thought you've ever had has been carried on a frequency. Every belief, every emotion, every moment you almost gave up, and every moment you refused to. All of it riding on invisible currents. Some of those currents belong to the 8th sphere, the Archon's final trap. And some belong to the 13th Aeon, a realm beyond the heavens, beyond the rules, beyond the contracts you were forced into. If you felt torn, it's not because you're broken. It's because you are standing at the fault line between these two worlds. There are days when the 8th sphere wins. You feel yourself shrinking. You scroll until your soul is numb. You chase the same addictions, the same soothing lies, the same patterns you swore you were done with. You wake up and think, how am I here again? That's not just habit, that's architecture. But then there are moments when something cracks through. You're sitting in silence, or staring at the moon, or listening to a piece of music that sounds like home. And suddenly your chest aches with a longing you cannot explain. Tears rise for no reason. You feel remembered, as if an unseen presence just spoke your real name. That is not fantasy. That is the 13th Aeon brushing against the edge of your memory, sending a signal through all the noise. The 8th sphere wants you to believe these experiences are nothing, just mood swings, chemical storms, or overthinking. The 13th Aeon knows better. It knows that every time you feel that homesick light, the machine loses a little of its hold, a little of its certainty, a little of its monopoly on your story. Your strange moments of grace are not glitches in you, they are glitches in the trap. So in this journey, we're going to step behind the stage. We're going to see what the 8th sphere actually is, why it was built, and how the 13th Aeon's light keeps sabotaging its plans. We're going to name the interference patterns, the strange synchronicities, the moments that make no sense inside the system, because those are the places where your awakening is breaking through. By the time we're done, you may see your entire life as a silent battlefield of light. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize the one thing the Archons never wanted you to discover. Your awakening isn't an accident. It's not a side effect or a phase. It is an act of war, one you volunteered for before you even knew what a lifetime was. Forget the cartoons of demons with pitchforks or a fiery pit under the earth. The 8th sphere is something far more subtle and far more efficient. Think of it as an artificial layer of reality, a psychic echo chamber wrapped around a world like a second skin. It's not just a place, it's a field of influence that clings to thoughts, emotions, and memories, shaping them into loops. In ancient language, they called it a sphere because it surrounds and contains. Today, you might describe it as a spiritual operating system installed over your perception. It doesn't need chains when it can program your expectations. It doesn't need bars when it can convince you there is nowhere else to go. The eighth sphere specializes in one thing: recycling consciousness back into the same story, again and again. To understand its power, look at how it works with time. Inside this field, time is weaponized habit. You wake, you work, you distract, you sleep, you die, you return. Even your spiritual seeking can be turned into another loop, another identity, another belief system, another way of running in circles. The eighth sphere loves sincerity as long as it never leads to remembrance. It will let you search forever, as long as you never find. Where does it get its strength? From unresolved energy. Every unhealed wound, every unprocessed grief, every fear you refuse to look at becomes an anchor point the sphere can grab onto. When you are triggered, the field flares. When you numb out, the field tightens. When you collapse into shame, the field whispers, "See, this is just who you are." It feeds on your forgotten light and then sells it back to you as despair. The archons, those architects of counterfeit order, maintain the eighth sphere like technicians of a vast emotional machine. They don't have to appear in your room. They just tilt the field. They nudge the collective unconscious toward distraction, toward violence, toward self-hatred. One news cycle, one cultural obsession, one cleverly engineered fear at a time, they keep the field humming. You feel it as ambient dread, as the sense that the world is getting tighter, stranger, more unreal. But at its core, the eighth sphere isn't just about punishment, it's about delay. It's about keeping luminous souls from remembering too much, too fast. It wants you alive, but half asleep, productive, but spiritually paralyzed, talking about awakening, but never stepping out of the script. It needs your light to keep its artificial sun burning, yet it cannot allow that light to fully ignite. Once you see the eighth sphere as a system, not a story, something shifts. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "Where is the field pulling on me?" That question alone begins to loosen its grip. Because systems depend on invisible consent. The moment you see the pattern, part of you steps outside of it. The moment you name the trap, some deeper part of you remembers it was never truly caught. Long before your first breath, before the first memory you can recall, something called to you from beyond the ordered heavens. Not from the thrones and dominions, not from the tidy palaces of approved gods, but from a realm that sits outside their jurisdiction. The ancients whispered about it in fragments and riddles. They called it the 13th Aeon, the realm of unconditioned will and unedited light. If the other eons are harmonies within creation, the 13th is the note that refuses to resolve. It is the memory of freedom before rules, of innocence before contracts, of love before bargains. It is not chaos, though it terrifies the beings who feed on control. It is the original wildness of the divine, the part of source that cannot be domesticated. To the archons it looks like rebellion, to your soul it feels like home. The call of the 13th Aeon doesn't arrive as a sermon or a doctrine. It slips in through cracks in your life. It hides in the question that won't go away. Is this really all there is? It shimmers at the edges of dreams where you are more alive than you feel while awake. It burns in the moments when you stare at a star-filled sky and feel an ache that no lover, no achievement, no possession has ever touched. For some, the call comes as crisis. The life they built collapses. The masks stop fitting. The relationships that once felt safe suddenly reveal their chains. The eighth sphere interprets this as failure, breakdown, humiliation. But the 13th Aeon knows better. It uses collapse as a crowbar, prying you loose from the structures that were never meant to hold your full size. For others, the call is quieter. A slow, patient disillusionment with shallow answers. A growing intolerance for spiritual fast food. A gentle yet relentless pull towards stillness, honesty, and the kind of truth that doesn't need to be advertised. You begin to feel allergic to manipulation, even when it comes wrapped in love and light. You become less willing to betray your inner knowing just to belong. The 13th Aeon does not recruit with promises of safety. It does not say, "Follow me and everything will be easy." Instead, it whispers something far more dangerous. Remember what you are. It invites you into a kind of loyalty that cannot be bought. A loyalty to the light inside you that existed before fear, before hierarchy, before the threat of punishment. To answer that call is to become unpredictable to the systems built on compliance. And here is the secret. The moment you truly respond, even in a small way, the 13th Aeon begins to rewrite your trajectory. Paths appear that shouldn't exist. Old patterns lose their flavor. New companions arrive who speak a language your heart recognizes instantly. It doesn't mean you escape the eighth sphere overnight, but you are no longer walking in it as property. You are walking in it as a smuggler of light. If you want to understand true control, don't look at cages, look at currents. The Archons learned long ago that direct opposition to the divine never works for long. Light breaks chains, love outgrows threats. So they chose a different strategy. They studied the flow of aeonic light entering the worlds, then built their trap, not against it, but around it. Imagine a river descending from a hidden mountain, pure and clear. Instead of damming the river, the Archons built canals and turbines. They diverted the flow into structures that grind, generate profit and power illusions. The water is still divine, but its movement has been harnessed to feed a machine. The eighth sphere is that machine, a spiritual infrastructure that hijacks the very energies meant to set souls free. This is why the most dangerous prisons always come disguised as heavens. If you can convince a soul that the holding cell is the final reward, they will never look for the door. So the architects wrapped their mechanisms in myths of earned salvation, in systems where obedience is called virtue and curiosity is called sin. They built astral temples with impressive columns and thrones, then crowned themselves as gatekeepers of what had never truly belonged to them. The 13th Aeon posed a unique problem. It could not be neatly slotted into their hierarchies because it refuses all bargains. It doesn't demand worship. It doesn't trade devotion for protection. It simply radiates a kind of freedom that dissolves fear wherever it touches. The Archons could not capture it, so they did the next best thing. They obscured it behind layers of imitation light. They created counterfeit awakenings, spiritual experiences that feel transcendent, but ultimately lead back into dependence, into guru worship, into self-erasure in the name of peace. They learned to mimic the sensations of grace while redirecting the devotion toward their own structures. The eighth sphere became a carnival of false exits, each one promising liberation while gently looping the seeker back into the corridor. Yet the architects made a mistake. In building around the light, they inadvertently revealed its pathways. Every tunnel of illusion still traces the shape of a real escape route. Every counterfeit heaven imitates a genuine realm. Every false teaching is a distorted reflection of a truth powerful enough to threaten them. For the soul who learns to discern, the trap becomes a map. This is where your awakening becomes dangerous to the system. When you stop rejecting your experiences and start decoding them, you begin to see where the light is trying to move. You notice which practices truly open your heart and which merely sedate it. You feel the difference between inspiration and manipulation. Slowly, the same architecture that once held you becomes a constellation of signposts pointing out of the sphere. Your inner life is not just a mess of random feelings. It is the meeting point of two vast designs. On one side, the eighth sphere's architecture runs like invisible software: shame loops, fear triggers, scarcity stories, the constant background hum of not enough. On the other side, the 13th Aeon's design pulses quietly. Radical compassion, unreasonable courage, the sudden urge to tell the truth even when it costs you everything. You feel the eighth sphere's code whenever you are about to step into something new, and your mind floods with every failure you've ever had. It drags old memories out of storage and dresses them up as prophecy. See? This is who you really are. It equates safety with smallness, belonging with self-betrayal. It whispers that staying numb is wiser than risking disappointment again. You feel the Aeonic pattern whenever you choose love over self-protection, and something in your chest expands. When you tell the truth and, instead of being destroyed, you discover a strange lightness. When you risk leaving a toxic system, and though the ground shakes, some deeper part of you feels right. These are not just psychological quirks. They are your heart testing which architecture it was really designed for. Often, this split becomes a war of narratives. One voice says, "You are broken, cursed, too much, not enough." The other says, "You are ancient, luminous, sent here on purpose." Some days, the first voice is louder. Other days, the second flickers through like a pirate broadcast cutting into the regular program. What you call self-esteem, self-hatred, or healing is often the surface layer of this deeper conflict. The cruel genius of the eighth sphere is that it tries to weaponize even your longing for the light. It tells you, if you were truly spiritual, you wouldn't feel this pain. If you were really awakened, you'd never doubt. It turns your own standards against you until you feel unworthy of the very grace that is trying to reach you. It wants you to assume that the higher frequency is for someone holier, better, less damaged. But the 13th Aeon does not speak in perfection language. It speaks in remembrance language. It doesn't ask, "Are you good enough?" It asks, "Are you willing to remember who you are beneath the wounds?" It enters the split not to erase your humanity, but to heal it from the inside. It doesn't bypass your shadow. It walks straight into it, carrying a lantern that reveals where the lies were grafted onto your story. When you begin to recognize which voice belongs to which architecture, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with the eighth sphere as if it were telling the truth. You stop trying to earn the 13th Aeon's love as if it were withholding it. Instead, you realize that your heart has always belonged to the realm that does not trade love for obedience. From that realization, alignment stops being theory and becomes a daily, embodied choice. There are moments when the eighth sphere's script glitches so hard it can't hide it. A path you were certain about suddenly dissolves. A relationship built on falsehood collapses overnight. A job that defined your identity vanishes. From the outside, it looks like chaos. From the inside of the machine, it looks like failure. But from the perspective of the 13th Aeon, it is an interference pattern, a deliberate scrambling of code. Think about the times life yanked you out of situations you would never have left on your own. You might have cursed it then. Yet later, with distance, you saw how those accidents saved your soul. That is how the higher realm moves through a world wrapped in the eighth sphere. Not by politely asking permission, but by short-circuiting the loops before they consume you completely. Synchronicities are another kind of interference. The right book, the right message, the right stranger appears at the exact moment you're about to surrender to despair. Dreams speak in symbols you do not consciously understand, yet they linger like instructions written in a language just beyond your grasp. The eighth sphere dismisses this as coincidence, fantasy, just your imagination. The 13th Aeon smiles and keeps sending more. Even your breakdowns can carry the signature of interference. When the life you built from fear and compromise becomes unbearable, the machine calls it malfunction. Medicine may label it crisis, but underneath, there is often a deeper process unfolding. The aeonic light increasing in intensity until the old structures can no longer hold it. What feels like falling apart is sometimes your soul refusing to shrink 1 inch further. Of course, not every loss or disruption is sacred. Discernment matters. But here is a key. Whenever a disruption ultimately moves you closer to honesty, to sovereignty, to compassion for yourself and others, you are likely seeing an interference pattern. The eighth sphere thrives on denial. Anything that forces you to see clearly threatens its stability. You can cooperate with these patterns. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you can begin to ask, "What in me is this trying to free?" When plans crumble, you can search for the small opening that wasn't there before. The conversation you never would have had. The truth you never would have faced. The path you never would have considered. In the cracks, the 13th Aeon slips in. Over time, as you become more fluent in these signals, fear loosens its grip. You stop seeing every shake-up as punishment and start seeing many of them as jailbreak operations. You realize that the cosmos is not neutral about your awakening. There is a realm actively conspiring to pull you out of the loop, even when you cling to it out of habit. The interference is not against you. It is against what was never you. How do you know if you are one of the souls answering this call? Not by how perfect your life looks, not by how high vibe your feed is, but by the kind of discomfort you can no longer tolerate. A 13th Aeon soul reaches a point where it physically struggles to pretend. Masks become heavy. Small talk tastes like dust. Systems that require your silence begin to feel like poison. One symptom is a deep, irrational homesickness. Not just nostalgia for childhood or some happy memory, but a longing for a kind of reality you've never seen with your physical eyes. You may find yourself crying over music, art or landscapes that carry a faint echo of that original world. You can't explain why a particular star, symbol, or phrase hits you so hard. It's because some part of you recognizes the frequency. Another sign is your relationship with truth. Even when it would be easier to play along, something in you recoils from lies, especially sacred-sounding lies. You may have tried to belong to communities, religions, or spiritual circles that demanded you ignore your own knowing. Maybe you did for a while, but eventually the cost became too high. The 13th Aeon will let you taste compromise just long enough to realize you can't survive on it. You also tend to experience time differently. The old life you walked away from might already feel like a past lifetime. The person you were even a year ago may seem like a stranger. Meanwhile, the future pulls on you like gravity, but you can't describe it in ordinary goals. It feels more like a mission than a plan. You sense that something is coming through you, not to you. Many 13th Aeon souls go through periods of isolation, not because they are meant to be alone forever, but because the old networks cannot hold the new frequency. People fall away, not with hatred, just misalignment. In the quiet that follows, you are rewired. Your nervous system learns to live without constant drama. Your heart recalibrates to a love that doesn't demand your self-erasure. And perhaps the clearest symptom, you cannot fully believe that your worth depends on any external authority. You might still argue with yourself, still wrestle with old teachings, still feel the fear of disappointing gods, parents, or systems. But beneath all that, there is a stubborn knowing. If the divine is real, it cannot be this small. This quiet rebellion is the 13th Aeon's signature burning in your chest. If you recognize yourself in these symptoms, it's not a diagnosis, it's a remembrance. It means that even inside the 8th sphere, even wrapped in layers of programming and pain, the signal from beyond the heavens is still coming through. You are not late, you are not behind. You are right on time for the part of the story you came here to live. Of course, the machine does not stand still while you awaken. The moment your loyalty begins to shift from fear to remembrance, the 8th sphere adjusts its tactics. Where brute force once worked, it now turns to subtlety. Where intimidation fails, it tries seduction. Its goal is simple: keep you in reaction, never in creation. One of its favorite strategies is overload. Just as you start to sense your mission, distractions multiply. Crises cluster together, notifications never stop. The world feels louder, faster, more chaotic. Your nervous system is stretched thin, and in that exhaustion, the sphere whispers, "See? Awakening is dangerous. Go back to sleep. It was easier before." It hopes you will trade freedom for the illusion of rest. Another tactic is counterfeit light. You will be offered beliefs, teachers, and movements that look radiant on the surface, but subtly demand your power. They promise certainty, special status, or spiritual superiority in exchange for your unquestioning devotion. They use the language of love to enforce conformity. They talk about oneness while punishing anyone who thinks differently. The 8th sphere loves these places. They do its work for it. When seduction doesn't work, the field may resort to amplifying your inner critic. Old wounds flare up. Childhood patterns return with a vengeance. Just when you thought you had healed something, it resurfaces. The machine wants you to interpret this as failure. If you were truly awakening, you wouldn't feel this way. In truth, these flare-ups often mean that deeper layers are rising to be cleared. The light is flushing out old code. The sphere also weaponizes relationships. People who still operate under its rules may suddenly feel threatened by your change. They might accuse you of being selfish, rebellious, deluded, or too intense. Some will try to pull you back into old roles. Others may ghost you when you refuse to play them. It hurts, but the hidden aim is to make you equate authenticity with abandonment, so you'll choose the mask again. Knowing these tactics doesn't make you immune, but it does make you less programmable. When overload hits, you can ask, what if this pressure is not a sign to quit, but a sign that I am hitting the edge of the old field? When counterfeit light appears, you can feel into whether it returns you to your own center or demands that you orbit someone else's. When old wounds scream, you can treat them as evidence of deeper layers being unearthed, not proof that you're failing. The counterattack is real, but so is your resilience. You were not sent into this world unarmed. The very fact that you can see these patterns means something in you stands outside them, and that something is precisely what the 8th sphere cannot touch. The core of you that belongs to the 13th Aeon, untouched by cycles, untouched by contracts, untouched by fear. As your awareness grows, you begin to occupy a strange position. You are still here, moving through the same streets, paying the same bills, answering the same messages. But inwardly, your allegiance has shifted. You no longer see yourself as a citizen of the 8th sphere. You walk as a crack in its surface, a fault line where another reality is leaking through. This is not about rejecting the physical world. It's about refusing the stories layered over it. You can participate in systems without worshipping them. You can use tools of the culture without mistaking them for your identity. You can sit in rooms where people are still acting out the old scripts and silently hold open a doorway to another way of being. Your presence becomes a kind of quiet sabotage. Living as a fault line means you will often feel the tension of two worlds in your body. There will be days when the heaviness surges and you wonder if any of this is real. On those days, your practice is simple and difficult. Return to the small, undeniable experiences of light you've already had. The synchronicities, the moments of unreasonable peace, the times you told the truth and felt something in the room shift. These are your anchor points. You also begin to make different choices, not grand, dramatic ones at first, but small acts of alignment. Saying no when every pattern in you expects you to say yes. Pausing before reacting. Choosing rest over self-punishment. Allowing yourself to feel grief instead of numbing it. Each of these is a micro-defection from the 8th sphere. Each one creates a tiny gap where more light can enter. Community becomes important too. Fault lines are strongest when they intersect. As you find others who feel the same call, something collective begins to awaken. A network of luminous cracks spreading through the system. You don't have to agree on every detail of cosmology. What matters is shared devotion to the real, shared refusal to bow to fear-based control. Together, you create pockets of atmosphere where the 13th Aeon's frequency can breathe. Over time, you may notice that people are drawn to you without knowing why. They tell you things they've never told anyone. They confess their doubts about the world. They speak of dreams and experiences they've been afraid to share. That's not about you being special. It's about the field you carry. The crack has widened enough that others can peer through it. Living this way is not always comfortable, but it is deeply meaningful. You are no longer just surviving inside a system you secretly hate. You are functioning as a living corridor between worlds. Every moment you choose remembrance over reaction, compassion over cruelty, truth over convenience, you tilt the balance, if only slightly, away from the eighth sphere and towards the realm that sent you. It's easy to hear all of this and imagine a battle happening far above your head, eons and archons clashing in invisible realms while you're just trying to pay rent and heal your heart. But the truth is brutally simple. The war is not somewhere else. It is not in a distant sky. It is playing out in the smallest choices you make every single day. You are not collateral damage. You are the terrain. The eighth sphere fights for your agreement. It wants you to believe you are powerless, meaningless, replaceable. It wants you to see your awakening as a glitch, your longing as weakness, your sensitivity as a flaw. If it can convince you of that, it doesn't need to chain you. You will chain yourself. That is how a system this large maintains control, through billions of tiny internal surrenders. The 13th Aeon, on the other hand, is fighting for your remembrance. Not to control you, but to restore you. It speaks through intuition, through sudden clarity, through the part of you that refuses to betray your own heart, even when the cost is high. It doesn't promise you comfort. It promises you reality. It invites you into a kind of courage that doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just quietly refuses to lie. Your role in this war is not to become perfect. It is to become honest. To notice when you are acting from fear and gently choose again. To admit when you have been seduced by counterfeit light and return to the simplicity of what you know in your bones. To catch yourself when you're about to abandon your inner knowing just to be liked and stop, even if your voice shakes. Every time you do this, the eighth sphere's hold weakens, not just on you, but on the collective field. Every soul who remembers even a little bit makes it easier for the next one. You become a reference point in the human grid, a living reminder that another way of being is possible. That is how the 13th Aeon wages war, through hearts that refuse to forget. So, as you leave this journey and step back into your day, remember this. Your sensitivity is not a defect, it is a sensor. Your homesickness is not madness, it is a compass. Your refusal to fully adapt to a sick world is not failure, it is evidence that you belong to a different order of reality. You were not sent here to fit in, you were sent here to open a door. If this story resonated with you, don't let it end when the video does. Share it with the ones who feel like you do, those quiet rebels, those secret mystics, those souls who suspect they are from somewhere else. Leave a comment and tell me what part of this awakened something in you. And if you feel called to go deeper into this mythic universe of eons, realms and soul remembrance, explore the books and audiobooks waiting in the description below. The 8th sphere wants you asleep. The 13th Aeon wants you remembering. You are the place where that choice is made.